Thank you. Hi, everyone. Today is our first meeting, our first discussion session. It will be about effectiveness and acceptability of parent training via telehealth among families around the world. And this article is published in Java. In the beginning, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Manal Alaryyani. I'm an Emirati BCBA, and I am the owner of Little Helpers Nursery in Abu Dhabi. I am a co-founder of ABA Journal Club, which started with 3 Emiratis BCBAs, Sharifa Yatim, Nusayb Al-Amri, and myself. ABA Journal Club is a volunteer-based and non-profit initiative that is open for members to disseminate the knowledge of ABA and to provide free CEUs in collaboration with ECAE. Club membership is open for everyone who's interested and passionate about ABA science. We will have frequent sessions and we will announce about them in social media accounts such as an Instagram account or via email. Before the meeting, we will share the ABA article to be reviewed by expected audiences, and we will discuss it in our session. We will summarize the article in the beginning of each session, and we will discuss it according to the 7 dimensions of ABA. At the end, if you are a BCBA, you will get a free CEUs. Why I chose this article? I chose this article because of the importance of the topic during COVID-19. Many cases got the benefit of telehealth services, and it was in some cases the only option to get the treatment, especially that with the long period of locking down many schools, many centers during the last 6 months. It's a recent article and it's published in Java. It targeted multicultural families across the world, and it's a replication of a successful study in USA. It's also empowering the parents to run FAs and train their children functional communication to treat socially maintained problem behaviors. The article summary. Tesami et al. 2019 replicated a study done by Wacker et al. 2013, which targeted training parents on conducting FA and functional communication via telehealth in USA. Wacker et al. 2013 is an article that proved the effectiveness of using telehealth services to reduce problem behaviors and parents' procedure integrity. Also, children's treatment outcomes were similar to those of families receiving in-person trainings. It's a fact that the number of BCBAs is increasing with time. And as of July 1st, 2020, the total number of certified practitioners is increasing across years, and the total number of BCBAs around the world is about 40,338 BCBAs. Most of them located in US, and the ratio of each BCBA to their country population outside US is too high to provide effective services. This is where telehealth services is at high demand across the globe. Lack of ABA training centers and lack of certified BCBAs outside USA made telehealth services is the only option for many cases. Although telehealth services is very useful for many cases, but there is a lot of barriers across the globe. First of all, speaking different languages and the need of connecting with interpreters who sometimes really have no background of ABA make telehealth services difficult for some cases. The use of technology and must having access to a high-speed wired cable internet connection, a laptop or a smartphone, necessary software, and a webcam is a challenge for many families. Also, the differences in culture, values, and the belief differences that may affect approaching the client. In this article, the focus was on different 8 countries, and it targeted big cities and countrysides to disseminate the behavior analysis services worldwide and across different cultures and populations. In this study, 18 children diagnosed with autism and their parents participated in the study. The age was between 3 and 13 years old, and their mothers conducted the sessions. Families were from Greece, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Ukraine, Mexico, and Costa Rica. The eligibility of the experiment is at least 2 years old, diagnosed with autism, and engaged in problem behavior daily. In addition to that, the caregiver should have access to the internet and to a smartphone, laptop, or a desktop. Participants reached through parents' Facebook groups and via personal experiment Facebook account. That was including parents who speak Greek, Spanish, Russian, and Arabic. A master's or doctoral level therapist coached the parents either directly to their native language or through interpreter during 1-hour appointments once a week. Both are located in the United States and conducted their consultation from their office in Houston, US. All parents run their sessions in different rooms in their home, except 2 parents, they run it in a therapy room in Early Learning Center. Parents were with no background in ABA except 1 parent who has some knowledge about it. Interpreters residing in different locations, such as United States and Saudi Arabia at the time of the study, and has different languages and culture backgrounds, but no background in ABA. They went through ABA training to have a background about the study. 12 families only completed the evaluation. Problem behavior during the FA that served as a baseline, and functional communication training introduced at highest level of a problem behavior. They introduced a couple of sessions before starting the FA to determine which behavior they want to target, and they define each behavior with the parents, how it looked like exactly to be easy to measure. And also they put like a design for the FA according to the parents' reports about the problem behaviors. After that, they start doing the FAs for every child, and they use the FA data as a baseline. When the child reached the highest level of problem behavior, they introduce the functional communication training to measure the problem behavior and the number of requesting for every occasion. They set it for that. 5 of the 12 participants showed multiple control behavior. Problem behavior decreased at least 80% with all the students. All the children, except 1, requested during at least 90% of opportunities by the end of the treatment. So you can see on the graphs here, on x-axis, it's the sessions. And on y-axis, it's either the responses per minute for problem behavior, or it's the percentage of 10-second intervals for problem behavior. And it's clearly showed that the number of requesting was increasing to the max, and the number of problem behavior, it was reduced to the minimum. And some of them, they have a clear function for the problem behavior, and some of them, they have multiple functions. So every case was different. In the previous 6 cases we talked about, the parent didn't need an interpreters because they were speaking their native language. And with these cases, they try the families using interpreters because they are speaking different language. And the authors start to compare between the first 6 participants and the second 6 participants to compare the cases between needing the language or using interpreters to transfer the information. Functional communication training reduced a gradual decrease with these participants in a problem behavior to 0, and increase in independent MANs to 100 of opportunity. Each treatment was completed between 6 up to 22 weeks with a mean of 12 weeks. So you can see clearly here in the graph that they used an FA as a baseline data, and also they introduced the functional communication training, and you can see the change in requesting and the change in the amount of problem behavior. Regarding the connectivity of the 165 appointments, a large majority, 83%, lost at least 92 of the scheduled appointment time, which shows that connectivity problem didn't interfere with the service delivery. So here, the technology wasn't a problem in this study. This data was compared to a sample of family located in Texas and was nearly identical. So these minimum problems with the technology was even between families in the same country or across the globe. The difficulties was identical. In social validity parent survey results of 13 parents who received the services via telehealth, the result was identical to the parents in the US, except feeling that the treatment is more costly and more. In this article, authors use telehealth technologies to train parents in multiple countries to conduct a phase of problem behavior and to implement functional communication training with their young children. The treatment was highly effective in reducing problem behavior and increasing communication responses. They got the same outcome regardless of whether the therapist provided the services in their family native language or through interpreters. Therapist location didn't affect the treatment's result either. Parents reported that the assessment, treatment, procedures, outcomes, and training modality were acceptable. The author suggested the following. Using a translation software will be an option to consider in telehealth services. Methods and outcomes may be acceptable to individuals in a variety of cultures. Article sample may not be representative of most families in the community. They were well educated, volunteered to participate, and have access to technology such as computer or laptop, access to the internet, etc. The authors suggested to include the usage of the internet in future studies to determine the exact need of technology for each participant. Parents were running sessions between telehealth sessions. The authors recommended collecting procedure integrity data and taping the sessions. None of the participants have high risk behavior in the study. So the question is telehealth services suitable for cases with behaviors that interfere with safety? This question may be interested for people who do researches about telehealth services in the future. Conclusion, the demand of ABA service exceeds the availability of qualified professionals. Telehealth technologies offer the opportunity for BCBA to provide coaching to parent and other interventions despite of language, culture, or location. There are different factors that we need to look at when we choose telehealth services for clients, such as cost, access to technology, and environment. So this is the end of the summary for the article, and we would like to review the 7 dimensions of ABA and see if this article is really demonstrating each dimension of ABA. We're going to open the discussion by reviewing every dimension and give the chance for the participant to participate and give their views around the study. So all applied behavior analysis interventions fall within or defined by these 7 core dimensions. As a whole, these 7 dimensions make up the framework of a proper applied behavior analysis intervention, and they support techniques used during therapy sessions. For easy remembering of the dimensions, there is a shortcut, GetACAP, where it summarized the 7 dimensions that mentioned in the article. Any study to be, following this dimension need to be effective, technological, applied, behavioral, analytic, conceptual, systematic, and generality. The first dimension is generality. A behavior demonstrates generality when the taught behavior carries over into other contexts than just training environment. We want these taught behaviors to be used in multiple settings across multiple people and to continue to be used in the future. So the question here, do you think this study can be carried to other settings, other people?
Hi, Manal. It's
I don't know.
Sharifa. Hi, Manal.
Yes, Sharifa?
Hi, Manal. Thank you so much for the summary. I just wanted to jump in as well to welcome everyone, and also I love the way you've summarized the outcomes of this research. And I know that in this article they focused only on FCT, functional communication training, and I wonder if you can clarify if you found in the article anything relating to how was the training happening? Like, was it something that you think the procedure was able to be applied correctly? Maybe that's in question number 4. Maybe we can talk about that later on. But I just wanted to also focus on, as part of the ABA Journal Club, we wanted to embed the 7 dimensions of ABA as part of our regular theme. Since this is the first session, we wanted to make sure that these articles that we talk about in our sessions, that they meet the 7 dimensions. That will help us to conclude whether there is some gaps in the research, and just to make sure that when we are applying any of these articles, we are looking into some of these gaps and some limitations of these research. And so we made this as part of the group with Manal and Seba to make sure that the 7 dimensions are always mentioned in the end of our article. Yeah, so I just wanted to hop in and mention that, as that is part of our kind of plan, is to continue to keep the 7 dimensions on our kind of on our headboard, to make sure that when people are reading any articles relating to applied behavior analysis, we want to make sure that they hit those dimensions, the 7 dimensions. That's why we kind of went into the 7 dimensions after summarizing the articles. I think that would be great. For me, I can just answer your question regarding the generality. I think it's important that we've seen that they've targeted several different families. I think that was great, with different nationalities and background. And we've seen that all of them, I think, if I wasn't mistaken, if I missed something, they all had the ability to increase the FCT with telehealth. Thanks, yes. And that's my only my only comments here from my side.
Anyone else want to add something?
Yes, Manal, you're actually getting lots of responses in the chat, which I know you're unable to see right now, so I'll just summarize them. So Amina thinks that generality does apply because participants were from all over the world with different locations and languages, and the ages of the participants were varied. Ruba says that she guessed those because we can try to apply it here in the UAE as a different setting. Wouldn't that be a lovely master's thesis? And Mona commented saying that that we hope we can replicate it in different countries or with different skills to serve the ABA service. And then Melody just contributed that most of the participants were of wealthier and educational background as well, may not be as easy to apply for lower income families. So that's a really interesting point raised by Melody, Manal.
Also, I was thinking about the specific child. If he learned to do it with his mom in his comfort zone, maybe in his bedroom or his living room, is he able to do the same with other peoples in other settings? So what do you think?
So I wanted to add something with regards to that. I think that technology is definitely an expense on families, so it's not accessible to all. And also the location will interfere, the region, if they have connectivity and availability in their infrastructure, will definitely also affect access to telehealth. However, when accessible, I think if you have a laptop, not a laptop, but a technology that can be mobile, that you can take with you across settings, not just in the home. And if you wanted to apply it outside in the community, and if it's acceptable by the culture, then that's an interesting experiment. It's an interesting aspect to implement across settings and across people. Of course, the challenge becomes having an interpreter at all times, or if the family need to videotape, again, using videotape technology, that would be another option. But I think that the potential has generality. But again, I think understanding the infrastructure, the availability, is important, but definitely a potential to research, for research.
I agree. Nice point. Okay, let's move to the second dimension. Being effective, interventions are effective when they improve a behavior in a practical manner. If the application of the behavior techniques doesn't produce large enough effects for practical value, then the application has failed. An intervention is effective when it changes the behavior it seeks to change. So here in the study, they really decide which behavior they want to focus on, and they took their time with their parents to choose which behavior has the priority than the other to make the FA and the treatment and target that behavior. So what do you think about this dimension?
Hi, this is Sharifa again.
Hi, Sharifa.
You know what? I was going through the article and I love the way they actually met before the appointment of their FA, and they met with a parent to identify the problem, the topography of the problem behavior. Remember, sometimes they don't know how to operationally define the behaviors. They might jump in and say, oh, he's angry or he's frustrated. But I love the way they actually sat with a parent. They had a session just to go through some fundamental things that what are the things that you need to look at? And I think that is important part of this training and their methodology and their procedure, I mean. So I think the effectiveness of this program, I think it's relating to how do they prepare the parent in conducting such what do you call this, intervention. Parents were conducting the sessions with the coaching online, which is very similar to what Wacker was doing in 2013. And I think it's very important for families to understand the FA beforehand, the functionalities beforehand, so that they know to come up with the right function of their behavior. And I think that's very tricky, especially here in our culture, that we basically need to go through the FA procedure, why we're doing that, how to take the data, and how do they tailor the FA to their child or to their kids. So I think that part is so important to make sure the effectiveness of the program.
So you see that the article met this dimension?
I think, yes, they did meet it. I think it was met. But for practicality reason, I think it's important that we look into some of the unique methodologies that were incorporated to make it effective.
Anyone else want to add something?
So Manal, Ruqayya has her hand up. Ruqayya, do you have just unmute yourself before you speak?
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry, I'm going to take you back to the last point, the first dimension, the generality. It's just because it's such a pressing point that I'm facing nowadays in Kuwait. I'm not sure if I could find in the article the basis of choosing the cases that they're working with other than their demographics in terms of like diagnosis, the age and all of that. What about the motivation of the family? Like a lot of families would come and ask for help, but they don't have the MO to actually change their behavior to become the teachers of their students. And I think that's such a big deal because no matter how good you are in no matter how good we are as BCBAs and how long we have the experience, if we can't really contrive that motivation of the parents that really now you have to change your role, not just as a parent, but become also a therapist. It really, I think, it affects not just the generality part, but even the effectiveness and all the other dimensions. Because you won't get the results if they're not really motivated to do what they do. So I guess if we could have also add as a dimension of the next studies or future studies that we're going to do in this area, if we can somehow like test the motivation of the parents, we can find out if they actually did take part in teaching their kids in the past, and would that be an indicator of actually the effectiveness of this method, like teaching the students online too. Motivation is such a big deal, and I think it really makes or breaks any intervention we do, whether online or otherwise. I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share something about effective?
Yeah, there's some comments here, Manal. This is Michelle. There's some other comments in the chat that I think would be useful to share. So Dr. Sarah agreed with Sharifa's earlier point, and she was just wondering about that component and did it promote effectiveness, the dimension of effectiveness applied, or both. And she identified that the pre-FA meetings and encouraging parents to select socially significant behaviours were definitely an interesting part of the study. And then Amina agreed with Ruqayya and said there were a number of families who did not complete their participation in the study, which supports your point. And Asil also agreed with Ruqayya, saying that that's a very good point. So yeah, keep those thoughts and opinions coming, everyone.
Some parents didn't complete the study because of different causes it mentioned in the article. Some of them, they couldn't afford internet access. Some of them, they moved physically from the location they were in because of earthquake, I believe. Something happened in their country. So they were like not able to complete. And some of them, they couldn't arrange an appointment for an FAs with the therapist. They were too busy to like fit their appointments in the schedule. So I think these are the causes they mentioned. But what Dr. Ruqayya is saying about motivation, we really face it when we deal with parents. Most of the parents who see improvement in their friends' kids who's got ABA treatment, they will be more motivated to ask for the service. And if we try to do it in a smart way where we really target the most important problem that the parent is suffering from with their kids in the beginning, that will help them trust us more and complete the ABA service. Even it's sometimes for them it's a bit slow and pricey and it's hard to be fit with busy schedules. But if we do it in a smart way from the beginning, I think they will see the difference. But building a community between parents is the most thing successful for me in my practice, because once they see other kids are improving, they will be motivated to bring their kids to the same service and try to consult the same place to work with their kids.
Great.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Amina has her hand raised. So Amina, if you just want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say, I think that that's an absolutely great point. And like you said, Manal, I think that I think that is a problem even with one-to-one work. So even face-to-face provision of ABA services, you'll have parents sometimes, or the people that are implementing it, that aren't doing everything that the BCBA would like them to do, or something like that. So so I think it's the same point as applies to the real world. And if telehealth can provide services to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access them, then I think it's worth looking into this further.
Thank you, Amna. So let's move to the next dimension. It's technological. Technological, it talks more about procedures are described clearly so that others may implement the procedures accurately. Think of this dimension like a recipe. All steps are written in details to get a desired result. Same thing goes for applied behavior analysis interventions. So in this article, what do you think? Replicating this article is something doable with the all details they talk about procedures, or you think this article didn't mention that much about applying this article again? Anyone want to add something?
Yeah, hi, Sharifa. I want to add something. What's interesting is that they followed up with the parents, not just with like spoken recommendations of implementing FCT at home, or they also sent a written recommendation. And I think that part is such an important part when we're discussing making sure the fidelity of any intervention, if it was through telehealth, that we follow up with a written instruction, not just depending on the listener kind of or spoken intervention, or a spoken procedure of training. I thought that was very important. And I know that I've read several other training articles that component of written recommendations is very important as part of the training for the parents. And I thought that was very important to be part of the technological point of view here.
Anyone else want to add something?
Yes, so Dr. Sarah has her hand up. Dr. Sarah?
Hello. I was just going to say, I think that this article is interesting in terms of the technological aspect, because you almost have to have access to the WACR article to get all of the procedures that were used in their FA training and their FCT training. So I don't know if people have thoughts about that in terms of whether an article and study can be considered to be technological if you have to refer back to another previous article. I just don't know if people have thoughts, so it's more of a question than a response to your question. Hope that's okay.
Anyone else want to add something?
Well, I mean, to Dr. Sarah's point, I think it's a great point, Dr. Sarah. I mean, is it technological if it means that you have to go back and refer somewhere else? I mean, I guess technically yes, but the response effort is massive, isn't it? So they're not making your lives easier in terms of being able to replicate.
I also agree that there are multiple ways to access information as to the procedures that an article presents. Is really you need to reach out to the authors when you are attempting to replicate a study. Sometimes the information provided in an article, because of the size or the requirements, may not allow all the details to be embedded within it. However, I think this article did quite a good job within the framework to delineate what each family needed to do within the procedures. But again, if it were to be replicated, going back to the authors and requesting a detailed analysis of the procedures would be the way to go. That's kind of what I would do.
Also in the article, they mentioned in procedures part a lot of details. I liked a lot of ways of giving the priority for which function is important for parents, and even for the parents who would like to target two functions at the same time, they explain in detail how we can make it in sequence. And they talked about, like, if a child has attention and escape, a function at the same time, we can target it in sequence where we can work on both at the same time. When you read different articles, sometimes you don't see that detail. So for me, it was really helpful having these details in a procedures article without going back to the original article that they replicated.
Yeah, and also in the chat, Manal, Melody mentioned that the fact that language translation software was added was a nice touch, and this can be such a big barrier to overcome.
I agree. And the nice thing that they use different interpreters and different locations, and some of the interpreters, I think, moved physically from US to Saudi Arabia, and they complete the study. So that's even stronger for the study, that even when they change the location with the same interpreters, that didn't affect the training. Let's move to next dimension.
Sorry, Lama just expanded on that, saying she also liked the training procedure of the interpreters, that it was important to give them an idea about FBA to be able to communicate with parents using the appropriate terminology.
They did the training for them, but they didn't allow them to do it independently without the supervision of an BCBA. But they did the training for them and explained to them the study before starting the experiment. Okay, so on the applied dimension, it's a behavior change is applied when it's improved in the everyday life of a learner. And those who are closest to the learner, like partners, parents, siblings, they really notice the improvement and socially a socially significant behavior. So do you think this dimension, applied dimension, is demonstrated in the study?
I think it's definitely applied, because they definitely chose things by asking the parents. Like, even though there were behaviors where there are two different functions of behaviors, they asked the parent, would you like, we have two functions here. Do you want to, work on those two different functions of behavior? And I like that, giving the parent, control over their decision. I think that does make a huge difference in the MO, as some of the participants here were worried about. The MO of the parents is to give them the choice. Which one do you think you can, target? And I thought that was really, really nice.
In the study also, they notice, like reducing problem behavior. And I think that even without increasing the requesting, the independent requesting, that will be a gain for every parent. And they solve it. They found the function and they train them on requesting things, and they change their life. So definitely this article met the applied dimension. Anyone else want to add anything about the applied dimension?
There's a couple of comments, Manal, in the chat. Amina said that communication is very socially significant as a target behavior. And then Dr. Lina said, as the data demonstrate improved outcomes that were socially significant, and that improved their quality of life.
Agreed. The next dimension is conceptuality systematic. Interventions are consistent with the principle demonstrated in the literature and the research. It's important that the practitioners continue to use research-based techniques and avoid using any shortcuts in our teaching methods. So, from this article, do you think they met this dimension?
So Ruba says yes. Does anyone feel comfortable unmuting themselves so they can discuss whether this study was conceptually systematic? If so, please raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Hi, I don't have the article in front of me, but this is a general question to everybody. I wonder, why did they jump into a full functional analysis? Did they do like a functional assessment before, just collecting ABC data and probably, train the parents on that? And then if it's an easy case, then you can get a really good idea about the function of the behavior. You don't have to really do the full analysis. Was that mentioned somewhere in the article? If somebody can refresh my memory.
In the article, they mentioned that one of the requirements is to have a problem behavior that's happening on a daily basis. And they designed the FA with the parents. So during discussion with the parents, they didn't mention that they used ABC data, but they used the FA data as a baseline for training. And they used the functional communication training at highest level of problem behavior. So these are the tips they go through, applying the treatment.
Yes, but I think through my training, we learned that we start with assessment. If we can't really get a clear idea about the function, then you go to FA. Would you consider that to be a conceptually systematic, and they didn't really use it's really not a shortcut, but they jumped the step because if I'm in the clinic and I'm doing a full FA, that's absolutely more of my time and more expensive to the parents. So I always start with an assessment, a functional assessment. So why did they skip that and just did FA right on the back? That's my question.
I'm not sure about that, but they didn't mention in detail how the assessment was in the beginning during meeting the parents in the first 2 appointments. During designing, they didn't mention exactly what tools they used.
Yeah. So I feel like I need this information to be able to judge on the conceptually systematic point.
But also they replicate another article which was very successful only in USA. So that's where they really rely on literature and previous researches. But as you said, this start to determine which function using the basic tools, they didn't mention it in that article.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything about this dimension?
I mean, I just want to add, they did meet this, I think, because they are using research. They did back up their research, and they did refer to the principles of the functional analysis principles. So I think they are using techniques that are based on research basis, not like they're using techniques that is, not research. It is a research-based techniques, but definitely I think that was a question, like why didn't they use a functional assessment first before a functional analysis? But I guess they also are replicating Wacker's study. But I think it definitely does meet this.
Thank you, Sharifa. Anyone else want to add anything? Dr. Michelle, do you see any comments? I can't see.
Yes, sorry. Melody has made some comments about the fact that FCT has been very well researched and replicated. And then following on from an earlier point, she thinks maybe to be more certain of the function of the problem behavior, it's especially considering it's via telehealth. And as Dr. Sarah agrees with Sharifa that all procedures were linked back to the basic principles of behavior reinforcement, extinction, etc. So agreeing that the study is conceptually systematic.
Thank you. Moving to the dimension of being analytical, using data to make informed decisions. The practitioner is able to show that whenever he or she applies a certain variable, the behavior is produced, and whenever he or she removes this variable, the behavior is lost. Do you think this article meets this dimension?
I mean, they did use a multiple baseline design. It's not ethical, I think, to stop the intervention and let them go back to their problem behavior. But I think it's wise that they use a multiple baseline design.
Thank you, Sharifa. Anyone else want to add anything? Any comments, Dr. Michelle?
I want to add something. It would be interesting to see if they did a follow-up probe to see if the parents continued to use FCT. I'm just wondering if that was something, and it would be something interesting to follow up after this intervention, because there wasn't, I don't see any probing or follow-up data collection on this. So I'm just wondering, it could be something that I can email the authors to see, did the parents maintain and did the behavior continue to be on a zero as indicated in this beautiful graphs that they have?
They didn't mention that in the article. Two of the students, their father and sibling try to do different probes, but not with all cases, only 2 cases.
Yeah, so Manal, Dr. Sarah just also highlighted the fact that the FA was run using a multi-element design as well, just to further to the point around research design.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Moving to the next dimension, behavioral. The behavior chosen must also be observable and measurable. By defining a behavior, practitioners are able to collect data and show change over time. Do you think this article met this dimension?
I think definitely. I feel that it's important that they did talk about what is observable behaviors, and I think that is such an important part in any of the parent training through telehealth, and I would be interested to know how they did actually train, like what was the training procedure that they did before they conducted the FA.
Thank you, Sharifa. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, so everyone's saying that yes, it is behavioral. Manal, Dr. Rakoya, and Adil saying of course it is, and baby Linda, and then Lama's saying that they provide definitions of all target behaviors.
Personally, I think meeting the parents in the beginning and doing the pre-assessment before doing anything is the secret for this success in this article, because once you know exactly what they're looking for and what's really they're facing in a daily life, I think we can figure out a lot of things.
I think also Manal, they actually also operationally defined the FCT. What was the manding word you know, and I think that was important to make sure that the parent understands what was the behavior or the response that the child needs to be prompted. You know, some of them did the card touch of a break, or said break please, or play or computer,
Something
or yeah, you know.
It was really in detail in procedures section. They spoke about every single case, what their their abilities and what they use exactly in every session. So I was really impressed with that article, how they define everything. Thank you, Sharifa. Moving to the suggestions from the authors. They said about translation using a software. What do you think in the future, really, as behavior analysis, that using a software for translation, do you think that will help your future clients who's not speaking like the same language?
If I may add something about that, for language purposes, I think language is culture. And so having a pure translation doesn't truly jump into an understanding of the true meaning of a word, because as we all know, one word may have several meanings under different contexts. So although a translation software seems to be a viable option under conditions of lack of having interpreters that understand the culture and the language, if that's the only resort, maybe, but we have to really be aware of the obstacles that we may face by not having a true translation of the conceptual meaning and understanding. And also behavior analysis, the language that we use, the jargon that we use, by itself, behavior analysis is a culture. And so again, translation, pure translation, word for word, may not be the most comprehensive way. And so that's bearing in mind that, and also recognizing some barriers and difficulties in finding a true description is something to bear in mind. My thoughts.
I totally agree with you. During my work really as a family liaison for a long time, it's really very sensitive when you translate ABA terms and when you explain things. And if you didn't know the culture, there is a problem can happen from nothing because you just missed something. So I think translation is it's just not like a pure translation. It's about really transferring a whole culture of ABA and what suits the culture for that family. What do you think?
Can I add something? I definitely agree on this. Like with my experience, even as an Arabic speaker, softwares do not translate correctly. And it's very important that at first we want to make sure that they get the gist of the idea of that component of whatever we're trying to translate. I think that's more important than, focusing on the technical terminology of translation. I think it's also nice to check in with the parent to kind of explain back to us, just so that we know that this is that there is no kind of limitation of understanding of the procedure due to that translation. I think that's also important.
Anyone else want to add anything about this suggestion?
Hi, Manal. Hi, everybody. This is Taiba.
Hi.
Hi. I have a suggestion about this thing. I struggle a lot when I start to study ABA as a bachelor. And if there's a community or something like that where they can build an app and use it as a source for translating from each country or from all BCBAs or who has the terminology. Did you get the idea?
Yes, it's a suggestion from your side to build a special software with ABA terminology to help parents with other languages.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. It's a nice idea. Maybe people can work on it in the future and maybe like try it and have feedback on that. But as I told you, I think translation, it's like human sense. It's more like you make the other person more comfortable with you and to share different things with you and maybe answer specific details and questions. So it's more than just having the information. Uh, but it's a nice and creative idea. Maybe if people really work on it, maybe we can get something can help. Thank you so much for your ad. So we reached the end of the time for the lecture. Thank you so much for attending the session and thank you so much for participating. It was really my pleasure meeting you today and it was really a great experience. Please feel free if you have any question to contact us. Our contacts are on screen at the screen right now and feel free if you want to be a member of our club to email us. You're more than welcome. It's our pleasure to have all of you with us.